I bathed in my backyard with the hose, and now my neighbor won't look at me. So I guess I should start by saying this wasn't something I had planned. It wasn't like I woke up one morning and thought, hey, you know what would be fun? Bathing in my backyard with a garden hose for the whole world to see. No, this was more of a series of unfortunate events, and maybe a few bad decisions on my part. It all started last month when I came home from work to discover that my water had been shut off. You see, I'd been in a bit of a financial rough patch lately, nothing too extreme, but enough that I had to prioritize certain bills over others. Apparently, the water company didn't appreciate being placed lower on the totem pole than my internet bill. I called customer service, hoping I could get it sorted out quickly, but after several minutes of press 1 for this, press 2 for that, I was told it would take 48 hours to restore my service. 2 days without water. Awesome. At first, I thought I could handle it. I mean, it's only 2 days, right? I had some bottled water in the fridge, and I figured I'd just stay hydrated, maybe order takeout to avoid cooking and washing dishes. It was summer, so the weather was warm, and I didn't mind too much. But by the next morning, something became very clear. I needed a shower. It wasn't just that I wanted a shower, I needed one. Between the heat, sweat, and grime from working outdoors the previous day, I felt gross, like I could practically feel the dirt clinging to my skin. So I did what any rational person would do. I grabbed a washcloth, some soap, and decided I could handle a quick rinse with the garden hose in my backyard. No big deal, right? Now, before you judge me, let me set the scene. My backyard is fenced in. The privacy fence is mostly intact, with just a few gaps here and there. I figured I'd stay close to the back door, out of sight of any curious neighbors. Besides, who would be looking into my yard at that time of day? It was mid-morning, and the sun was shining. I figured most people were at work or running errands. I'd just be quick about it. I hooked up the garden hose and let the cool water run through it for a minute. That initial blast of ice-cold water from a hose can be pretty jarring, so I wanted to make sure it was at least tolerable before I doused myself with it. I stepped onto the grass barefoot, feeling the sun warm my skin, and thought, okay, this won't be so bad. It's almost like a summer camp shower. Except, well, in the middle of my backyard. The first few sprays of water hit my legs, and I actually let out a small yelp from the shock of it. Even though it had warmed up a little, it was still colder than I expected. But determined to get clean, I pressed on. I lathered up my arms, my chest, and my legs, trying to be as quick as possible while keeping an eye out for any signs of movement from my neighbor's windows. Everything was going fine. I mean, it was weird, yes, but nothing catastrophic. At least not yet. But as I turned around to rinse the soap off my back, I heard a noise. At first, I thought it was just the sound of the wind or a bird flying by. But no, it was something more distinct. I glanced over my shoulder, and that's when I saw it. My next-door neighbor, John, standing at his kitchen window, staring directly at me. Now, John is a nice guy. We've lived next to each other for a few years, exchanged pleasantries, shared the occasional barbecue, and even helped each other out with some yard work. He's in his mid-50s, retired, and spends a lot of time puttering around his garden. A pretty chill dude overall, but at that moment, neither of us was feeling very chill. There was a split second of eye contact, just enough for me to register the absolute horror on his face. He wasn't just surprised, he was mortified. And I'm not entirely sure if it was because he saw me half naked, bathing with a hose, or because I'd caught him watching. Either way, I panicked. I fumbled with the hose, trying to cover myself as best as I could with one hand while turning off the water with the other. But the more I struggled, the more the hose seemed to have a mind of its own, flailing around and spraying water everywhere. Soap was still clinging to my skin, and I'm sure I looked like some kind of deranged car wash attendant in the middle of a meltdown. John, to his credit, disappeared from the window almost instantly. He must have realized the awkwardness of the situation and retreated. But now I was stuck, soaked and covered in suds, trying to figure out how to salvage what little dignity I had left. I dashed back toward the house, dripping wet, and slammed the back door shut behind me. I leaned against the door, heart pounding, and tried to make sense of what had just happened. The whole thing couldn't have lasted more than a minute, but it felt like an eternity. I felt embarrassed, but also a little angry. Why was he looking into my yard in the first place? I mean, sure, I was doing something ridiculous, but still. Over the next couple of days, I did my best to avoid John. I couldn't face him, not after that. The water company finally restored my service, and I was able to take a proper shower in the comfort of my own bathroom, but the damage had been done. Every time I stepped outside to take out the trash or water my plants, I found myself glancing nervously toward his house, half expecting him to pop out and make some awkward comment about our unfortunate encounter. But no, he didn't say anything. In fact, he didn't even look at me. If I saw him out in his yard, he'd suddenly become very interested in whatever flower he was tending to, or walk back into his house without so much as a wave. I couldn't tell if he was avoiding me out of politeness or if he was just as mortified as I was. Either way, our once friendly neighborly dynamic had shifted into something much more uncomfortable. The days turned into weeks, and I continued to live with the shame of my backyard hose bath. I considered going over to his house to apologize, but what would I even say? Hey, sorry you caught me in the middle of a makeshift outdoor shower. Let's pretend that never happened. I couldn't think of a way to bring it up that wouldn't make the situation even weirder. One evening, I saw John out in his driveway, taking out the trash. I took a deep breath and decided to face my embarrassment head-on. I walked over, trying to appear casual. "Hey, John," I called out, giving him a small wave. He looked up, startled, and gave me a quick nod. "Oh, hey," he muttered, not making eye contact. I cleared my throat, trying to sound nonchalant. "So, about the other day?" His face turned beet red. "No need to talk about it," he said quickly, waving his hand as if to shoo the memory away. "It's fine, it's fine." I nodded, grateful for his willingness to brush it under the rug. "Yeah, let's just forget about it." And that was it. We both mumbled a quick goodbye and went back to our respective homes. But even though we'd sort of addressed the situation, things between us never really went back to normal. He still avoids eye contact, and I still feel a twinge of embarrassment every time I see him out in his garden. So, moral of the story: pay your water bill on time, folks. It might just save you from a world of awkwardness with your neighbors. And if you ever find yourself in a pinch, maybe consider heading to a friend's place for a shower instead of relying on your trusty garden hose. Trust me, it's not worth the risk.